because I went through some of this stuff. If we're looking at homeschool kids versus public school, homeschool kids score 15 to 30% higher on standardized tests. They score higher on the SAT and the ACT. They are increasingly recruited by colleges and universities. And students, homeschool students, for many of the reasons we've already mentioned on the show, they prefer it. It's flexible. You can learn on vacation. Like I said, there's this, it can be more kind of customized and fun. Like these immersive experiences, extracurriculars, like Brett Cooper said, can be more relaxed. There can be clarity and extra care around, an individual student. Like if you're working with the teacher all the time, or you're getting your instruction through a virtual environment, you can go at your own pace. And there's so many advantages to that. And then across the board, like today's modern homeschool kid is typically above average for social, emotional, and psychological development. They have lots of advantages. Now, as a public school kid, if I look back and I say, okay, well, how does a public schooler compare? Well, I would say, you mentioned this, they're influenced a lot by the politics, the social element of being at school, the cliques, the drama, the social bullshit, the bullying. I think they're influenced. I look at my education journey, and I spent a whole hell of a lot more time interfacing with a bunch of other morons my age and learning things from them, like the movies they were watching or the weird, stuff they were doing, than I did actually interfacing directly with a teacher or some sort of authority figure and the people I'm supposed to be learning with. What I learned most from was the people around me who were, also at my level of education, which in grade school is very low. Again, limited direct instruction time, working directly with the teacher. They're teaching like a classroom of 20 people. And then it's kind of this environment of like, you keep up or you can fall behind in major ways. And I had ADD growing up, still do, which is probably why our podcast takes a really long time.
You and me both, brother.
But I fell behind in a lot of ways. Now I caught up later on, I've ended up, doing, I'd like to think quite well, but,
Rich, don't you think
ADD,
that's a terrible way to judge kids?
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Like,
yeah.
Okay, hey, you're bad at,
because you get grouped in
you're bad at math. You're a failure. You're failing math, but they're not saying, hey, you're doing really good in English, in history and science. You're actually really good at science, but you're failing at math. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's just not something I just want to be, ingraining in my child's brain that they're a failure, while not also looking at the fact, hey, you're really good at science. Like,
or also like, let's take some time and figure out maybe why you're bad at math.
People used to tell me I was stupid when I went to private school. And it turns out I was just really dyslexic. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. And they would just say that my teacher called me stupid. And I believed her because, she's an adult. It turns out I was probably way smarter than she was. And I was asking questions she couldn't answer. It's like, well, you just told me all these rules for reading and none of that makes sense because look, it's not spelled that way. Well, that's just what it is. But the root contradicts the rule you just gave me. Mm-hmm. And I used to get in trouble for arguing with them all the time. Well, that doesn't make sense. Earlier you said this, that, they hated me. I didn't do well.
Well, look, again, the public school system is not designed for
any outliers.
Outliers, you're right. Yeah, I was gonna say it's like custom attention like that, but you're right. It can't really cater to that very effectively, and it doesn't. I think we're both examples of that. But it doesn't mean if you're you're totally right. It creates an environment where if you're an outlier, you're a problem. I would argue, based on our own personal experiences and based on the evidence, like sometimes the outliers just are thinking about things differently. They're seeing the world differently. They're understanding the situation differently. And that's not inherently bad. It's bad in that environment, but grand scheme of things, that could actually be a huge advantage in their life. So, I think homeschool provides a better environment to cultivate that. Just to get heavy for a second though.
Hey, thanks for watching this clip. If you want to see the full podcast, be sure to click on the link in the description. And if you feel like it, hit subscribe.